if you want an innovative DJ, just know
DJ Anomaly.
DJ Anomaly
Goes by DJ Neal now, apparently.
DJ Neal Smith, or DJ Anomaly, as you might have known him from the clubs in the Bay. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tea with Mon Amie. Today, I am here with Neal and Natassia Smith, co-owners of Trinity Events. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, tell me a little bit about yourselves.
Well, we have been in business for 10 years now. We do all kinds of events, but definitely weddings are our bread and butter and our favorite thing to do.
You also miss the most important part, which is that we're married and have a business together.
Yes, that presents challenges, doesn't it?
Challenges and benefits.
That is true. There are many benefits and there are also many challenges.
Well, you guys have been married for a long time, right? It's been a while.
Yeah, we've been married for 10 years, actually. So that's how, we got into business. We started with our wedding, and that was the most challenging event we've ever done. We decided to do it ourselves. Neal DJ'd our wedding for the most part. He had a DJ friend that helped with, specifics and pushing play, but he didn't trust anyone to DJ. So he pre-recorded all of his mixes. And so inevitably he DJ'd our own wedding. And I coordinated it up until the day of.
Wow.
So that's what started us. And then after that, people saw we had a 220 guest wedding at my parents' estate, and we did it for less than $10,000. And after that, I had so many people come up to me and start asking me, how did you do it? Can you help me? How did you keep it under that budget? And so I realized I was giving away a lot of free information, and I thought I could get paid to do this.
Wow. How convenient.
That's where it all began.
Yes.
So our marriage and our business are the same age.
Yes. And Neal, you have been a DJ for a long time, right?
Yeah, I actually started DJing in high school. It sounds a little bit crazy to say over 20 years I've been DJing. It actually makes me feel very old, but it's been a lot of fun, and I've DJ'd all types of events. It actually fit that I started to do weddings at this age. I guess I could still be in the club, but doing weddings is more fun, more gratifying, at least for me at this point in my career.
You guys have done a lot of different events. You don't just do weddings. What are some of the other events that you've done?
We do lots of different events. I'm currently working on a baby shower right now, a socially distanced baby shower. We, thanks to 2020, have done a lot of virtual events. So I do a lot of virtual event planning, which is a very different ball game. And it's been interesting, been very interesting. But we do corporate parties. We do, like I said, baby showers, rehearsal dinners. You name the party, we've done it. We do birthday parties,
Theme parties.
Lots of themed parties.
Wow.
Trying to think of anything else that we've done in the past. It's really just...
The weddings are the main.
Yeah, weddings. Yeah. Weddings are really, we do the most of that. I would say 90% of our business is weddings.
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of, weddings are a little more reliant on planning than... a lot of times people can pull together a baby shower, they can pull together a party, but weddings are the thing where there's a lot of hidden things people don't know about.
Yes, absolutely. It is a different ball game. You're planning for a lot more people. You don't usually, I mean, I've probably in the past had parties of 200, but normal people don't have, that many guests. So it is definitely a different beast that you are planning for when you're doing a wedding. But what I will say is a lot of the events that we do that are outside of weddings, obviously corporate parties are a whole other, arena, but that's because they take as much planning as wedding. But these baby showers and birthday parties, most of them, if not all of them, are people we did weddings for. And they just got used to having someone else do the thought process for them. So they're like, hey, why don't you do our baby shower? So it's like we've done now where we have had a wedding, rehearsal, then wedding, then baby shower, then first birthday, because we just keep getting, the same people coming back and saying, you make this so easy. I don't want to do it anymore. I just pay you to do it.
Well, I mean, that's nice. Definitely nobody's going to complain about repeat business.
Not at all. And it's really nice when you have a relationship with those clients because you now understand each other. You know how each other works. There's trust there. So where maybe as a bride, they were a little bit more micromanaging. They have learned to relax and say, okay, I know how she works. I know how, Neal works. I don't have to worry about this.
I have heard, I don't know a ton about wedding planning myself, but I have heard that there's different kinds of services that planners offer and DJs offer as well. So can you get into what specifically you offer as a planner to fit different brides?
Well, I would say our business is a little different. So we like to say that we're like a one-stop shop. So when you come to us, realistically, what you're getting is a full service. So we don't just do event planning and DJing. We do invitations. We have a photo booth. We have photographer, so we can do all of those areas. So when I get a bride, they're like, this is so easy. You've just made it to where I now trust you and I don't have to then go and shop for these other things. So we create packages that, encompass all of those things. But then for the wedding side or the coordination side, rather, we have packages too. So you can do day of coordinating. We have month of coordinating, which is what I really recommend. And typically I kind of give my day of coordinating away and do month of coordinating because I just feel like the event goes a lot smoother, which is beneficial to me and to my bride. And then you have, how involved do you want your planner to be? Do you want them to be helping you with picking out the venue and the caterers and, the bakery and all of those things? Or do you just want them to come in and execute your vision? You know what you want. You already have it organized and you just need somebody to come in and just make sure all those vendors are there when they're supposed to be there. Everybody's set up and they're ready to go. And then just helping you stay on track for the day. Mm-hmm. So it's really, what is it that what is your personality as a bride? How organized are you? How detail oriented are you? And then from there, determining how much of a service you need. And also your budget plays a part in that too. So there are definitely levels to this game, if you will. And so it really just depends on what it is that you're looking for. And then that is kind of how we start to work on what that package looks like for you. Maybe you have somebody in mind that you already wanted. Like we split up. We don't do only weddings where we're both involved, So I do coordinating on weddings where there's another DJ. He DJs for weddings where there's already a coordinator, or maybe there's not a coordinator, And so we split up, and we do different packages for each of those deals. And then for Neal's stuff, I mean, obviously he has a range too, which I'll let him tell you about.
So again, our situation's a little bit unique in that we tend to work together mostly. That's the way we prefer to work. However, if someone's going out to get a DJ for their wedding, there definitely are levels. So our situation's a little bit unique in that we have the planning and the DJ, but if you're out getting your own DJ separate, then there are different levels. And one of the things that you're going to probably come across is that there are DJs that also do planning, and we can probably talk a little bit about this later, it's not always a good thing to have it all rolled up in one. It's kind of better to have people who specialize essentially. But going back to the original question, as far as the DJ service, obviously mostly music. I also do lighting if needed. Sometimes the venue takes care of that, but it's about getting the right music at the right time for the bride and the groom, make them happy. And of course, their family and friends.
So do you ever do any kind of situation like you did with your own wedding where you just give them the mix and let them?
I haven't. I had originally thought about that when I did it for my own or for our own wedding, but it's every bride and groom is unique. And so it makes it really difficult to try to pre-plan how the music's going to go. It worked well for us because I know my family, I know my friends, I know what will work in those situations.
What about my family and my friends?
And I know her family and her friends also. She also had some input on the music, I will say, but that's why I would shy away from having like a pre-recorded mix for a wedding. Maybe for a party, it would be perfectly fine. But when you're looking at a wedding, it's you want everything to be unique. And if something, that's one of the things about having a really good DJ is that you can make changes on the fly. And so there's been plenty of times where I go into a wedding and the bride and groom have given me a list. This is what we want to hear. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And I'm playing that music and nobody is dancing. And so I have to make changes and get people up and moving. And by the end of the night, the bride and the groom, they're so happy. They're so excited. They had such a good time, but it was all because I was able to modify where somebody who's new to, I hate to say it, but new to the game might not be able to make those kind of changes on the fly like that. And so the wedding might not be as exciting or memorable as they would have liked.
What would you say is the advantage of working with a planner for your wedding, and more specifically, the advantage of working with a pair like you guys that offers both?
Well, the first thing I would say is I always try to get in with my brides as soon as possible. And most of what I hear from my brides is, I wish I had called you sooner. That to me is always indicative of how important a planner is or a coordinator is for your event. Your coordinator comes in with a level of experience and also a track record. That person has created relationships with vendors. They know what works, what doesn't work, and they can then help you. That's not to say that I'm making all of those decisions. That's just to say I'm going to direct you in the right places so that you, one, don't get taken advantage of. Two, have somebody who's going to show up. That's the biggest thing, is that as a coordinator, the people that I'm recommending you to are people I've worked with. So I know that they're going to show up, they're not going to leave you hanging, and they're going to do a good job because I now have put my own name on the line for that vendor. I've vouched for them. So if I'm willing to do that, it's because I know that they're going to show up and do a good job. So that's the first thing. The second part of that is when you have a duo like Neal and I, one, you have a partnership. So I can help him along the way. There's been plenty of times where I'm like, I'm filling out the crowd. I'm out there. I am at the tables. I can hear what's being said. So I can then bring that information to him and say, hey, this is what I'm hearing. This is what they want. This is, what the crowd is saying. Then he can change it up. I can also help him staying on time. If something changes, our communication is consistent throughout the entire event. Where we have noticed that we have had issues in events past is when it's not the two of us working together. We have a rapport with one another. Also, because we're married, I'm not afraid to tell him the hard stuff or vice versa. I don't mind. I don't have to worry about, I don't want to say it like this, but I don't have to worry about his feelings because he knows that I'm there to help bring him up. And the same for me. So in our situation, it's really unique because we are married, we have a partnership, and we have a real strong trust between each other. So if something isn't working and I go to him and I say, hey, this is not good, or afterwards we download, we're constantly pushing each other to be better. And that's why we have been successful, is that we're not yes men to one another. We're break it down, be honest. How can we improve? What should we do next time that makes it better? Or even more so in the moment, this ain't working. We got to change this. And you don't get that with a different type of duo. I don't feel the same level of comfort with some random DJ that doesn't know me and has his ego involved and doesn't want to take it from, this random planner who doesn't know anything about the business because he doesn't know where I come from and I don't know where he comes from or she comes from.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times what people forget about this industry or what people don't know about the industry is this is an industry filled with people's egos.
Yes.
And it's very much because when you deal, and we've had this conversation on previous episodes of, art and artists, everybody is essentially an artist in their own right. So when you deal with artists, how do you measure your success on paper, right? Mm-hmm. The amount of jobs you've done, that's typically it. So when you come into an environment with a lot of other artists, the first question a lot of times you're going to get is, oh, what have you worked on? What have you done? And it becomes, this conflicting thing of egos where if you've only done 10 weddings and I've done 50, I'm not going to listen to what you say about the 10 weddings you've done when I've done 50, even though I could be doing something wrong that you would have learned in your 10 weddings, So I don't think that, couples should have to anticipate egos. I think that's something that should be handled on the professional side, but so people understand where the advantage is even further of you two working together, that is, there's no egos involved. Right. And if there is, neither of you have a problem calling the other one out on it.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, when we're working together, we have the same goal in mind, which is to make the bride and groom happy and for their night or day to be a memorable day, for them not to see any of the behind the scenes stuff, just for them to enjoy their wedding day.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I've had brides come to me after the fact and say, okay, so what went wrong? And I'm like, I'm not telling you that. That dies with me. You will never know what went wrong behind the scenes, because that spoils the moment. I want you to think it was as perfect as that memory that you had. And so for us, it's everything happens in a mumble, it's behind. We're smiling and I'm like, you got to fix this. So that they never experience that. And obviously when we are working with other vendors, because even when we're working together, we're still working with other vendors. You have to have that professionalism, and you also have to, and I think that's what's important with finding the right company that you're working with, whatever that is, DJ, coordinator, whatever that is, that does have that goal in mind, that at the end of it all, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with, is this this couple, are they getting everything that they want? And are we executing it with that in mind? If that's the goal, we're never going to go wrong by them.
Exactly. Yeah. I think one thing that's really important to look out for from my own opinion, my own viewpoint is, I know with what we do at Mon Ami, my first statement to the bride is never that we've been in business for over 40 years. Because I feel like if a company is leading with telling you we've done 5,000 weddings, we've done this, it's quantity.
Right.
Quantity, right? How many weddings can we do to tell you that we've done 5,000 weddings? Because just because you've done 5,000 weddings doesn't mean you did them seamlessly.
All right. Yeah.
You did work to push it. So I think always look for any kind of, with just vendors in general, the best way to avoid the clashing of the egos is to not go for vendors that lead with everything that they've done. Right. They lead with starting to, or trying to learn more about you off the bat. Right. Never mind the 5,000 weddings. Right. Let's talk about yours.
Yeah, it negates their experience too. It's their first time. And so while they want to feel comfortable and know that you have experience, they don't want to also just be one of your 500 experiences.
Exactly. So kind of on that note of you talking about taking your mistakes with you to the grave, I'm sure you see couples make a lot of mistakes between the both of you in their planning process. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make that make you cringe?
I think the first one that comes to mind is thinking that either, and it's kind of funny that I would say this given how we did our wedding, but thinking that they can do it themselves, or that they have an aunt or a cousin or a sister that can take care of the planning or the day of, or can be he's been a DJ in the past, my coworker, and he can do my wedding. As we said before, there's levels to it. So,
well, that's exactly what I was going to say, is that's why we got into business, is because it didn't go well. It didn't go well for us. And as many people as there were that came to us and asked us how we did it, for me, I didn't enjoy the process. It was a terrible experience. And we laugh about it now because we would never do a big wedding again, even though we do them for other people. I love doing big weddings for other people, but it's because I didn't have a planner. I didn't have a coordinator to sit there and help me through the process. I had to learn it all from the start. And it was rough. And having, everything pre-recorded was nice, but also things weren't played at the right time. And, there was technical issues, and then Neal's like in his tuxedo trying to figure out what wire is not. That's why we're in it. The biggest mistake people make is not having a professional in the business with experience helping them along the way. That is number one. The other biggest issue we see is, it's a kind of a two-part to that, is that they don't have a contract. They didn't put it in writing. There's not a level of professionalism. So what happens? Well, that friend of a friend of a friend who was going to DJ your wedding didn't have a contract with you, was doing it at a discount, and somebody else came along and offered that person more money. And now it's 2 weeks out and you don't have a DJ. We see it all the time, and you can talk to that.
Yeah, I've actually done a few. I don't enjoy doing last minute situations, but I've saved a few weddings. I guess a pat on my back on that. But I've saved a few because a friend or a friend of a friend or a family member was their DJ. They didn't have a contract. 2 weeks out from the wedding, that DJ can no longer do their event for whatever excuse they gave. But ultimately, it's most likely because they got paid more for that day. And so then they come running back asking, if there's anything that we can do to help. And also a mistake would be to wait too long to try to put things together. I think because many people, this is their first and hopefully only wedding, then they don't have the experience. And so that's why getting professionals that do this, it's important, because we have done so many weddings, we're able to say, avoid this, do this, look out for this. And people who are doing it themselves, they don't have that knowledge. There's only so much you can get from a YouTube video or from a forum online or something like that. And so it's important to have someone who's been through it that has that knowledge.
Yeah, I think going to that point, you know, we have all these wedding websites and things that have checklists, and that's great. They're helpful. But I always recommend starting with your coordinator. And that's not a selfish move. It's not because, hey, come to me because I can help you. It's literally because I wish I had done that. And that, for me, when you have that, that person can say, okay, this is really what's important. You know, let's figure out, what do you really need? And then that's going to help overall. It's going to help your budget. It's going to help you not pay stupid taxes, what I call it, in making bad decisions and then having to remake decisions and pay more because of that. Mm-hmm. So that's really, I mean, those are the most common mistakes that people make.
Yes. And you have a wide network of places and things.
Yes.
And ultimately, it just saves you time in the end. The stupid tax can also be time.
It's very much so that. And it takes the fun out of your wedding.
Yeah. I feel like it would be so easy just to be like, okay, I'm engaged and I'm ready to start planning my wedding. Hold on, let me get a planner, and my planner can help me with my venues. I have my venue secured. What's next? What else is going to take a long time?
Yes.
Okay, I need a dress. Oh my gosh, my planner knows 5 salons I can go to.
Right.
And she'll set the appointment up for me in some cases so that I can go try on dresses. What's next? What's next? What's next?
Yes.
And they can immediately start working with the venue, because a lot of people don't understand that certain venues have special regulations.
Very much so.
For things that can be done. And you will have those things that you don't think about that need to be taken care of.
Yep.
So in the case...
Yes.
You know.
And it also, just even having somebody to tell you what questions to ask.
Exactly.
There's so many times, and going to the mistakes that people make, you don't know what you don't know. And so having somebody to say, hey, because we've had this, does your DJ make announcements for your wedding? I had a bride with a DJ who said, I don't do any announcements. I just play music. He didn't even bring a microphone. It was a tough... Neal, luckily, was there to help me just on my side of things, had his equipment and had to bring out his equipment to help out this bride, because their DJ was not a real wedding DJ, did not have all of those services, and they didn't know. They just assumed, I'm hiring you for a wedding. You're going to, help make announcements. You're going to help move this along. No.
Exactly. It really is. There's just so many things that you just don't know. So it's always better. It's like trying to buy a house for the first time without a realtor. Like, they're going to tell you how to do it. You don't know, So it's tools.
Yep. And the more tools you have, the better off it's going to be, and the more enjoyable the experience is, because it is supposed to be a fun day.
Exactly. So what would you say if we're creating a resume for you guys? What are your job duties? What would you put under your title?
I'll let you go. You go first.
For me, I say music, sound, announcements, lighting if necessary. That would be kind of my realm of things.
I do everything else. I do everything else. Now, if you were talking about the business, I do everything. I book all of his jobs, my jobs, everything, whether or not I'm a coordinator for that event or not. So I run everything as far as the business is concerned. Financially, I coordinate our business is basically what it is. So I coordinate all the time. Now, as a coordinator, my job is really, it's so many things. Sometimes I have brides that, they don't have the money for a florist. and they just want simple flowers. So I'm putting together centerpieces. I'm, doing decorations along the aisleway, things that a florist would normally do. I'm doing those things. I literally do everything. I've been in the back scraping plates for the caterers. Like, I do everything that is needed to make that day go the way that it is supposed to go. So as a coordinator, and I know a lot of coordinators don't, and rightfully so. I understand why they don't. That's not in me to do it that way. I've always been the person that is going to just step up and make sure that couple is taken care of. Whatever that means, it falls on me.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. So what can brides expect to pay for the work you do? Now, you don't have to give me your specific rates, but just give me a healthy range of what they can expect for a planner and a DJ.
So for just talking planner and DJ, I would say plan for, it really depends on what you're looking for. If you're doing like day of coordinating, or if you're doing like full coordination, that range can be pretty wide. It can be anywhere from about realistically $3,000 to $15,000, depending on what you're looking for. If I'm doing your entire event, start to finish, I'm helping you. Like, I have brides that are doing destination weddings, but their destination is here and they're in another state. I'm visiting their venues. I'm sending them videos because they can't get on a plane and fly here every month. So it's all of those things. So it can be a huge range. I think the biggest thing when you're talking about money and what it is going to cost is understanding what your budget is first. Be honest with your coordinator on your budget. So often, one of the first questions I ask my couple is, what is your budget? They're hesitant to give that number to me because they think that I'm going to push them to the top of that budget. What I'm trying to do is figure out what vendors work within that budget so I can give them the most quality inside of that money marker.
And if it's realistic.
And also let them know if it's realistic. A lot of times they come to me and it's not. It's if somebody had come to me with my budget at $10,000, I would be like, listen, how many people are we talking? 220? No, sorry. That's going to be crazy time. And it was crazy time. It was really rough to do it for that amount. So it's learning what you really want, what's important to you, having that coordinator to help you figure that out. But overall, you're really not going to find a quality DJ coordinator for under $3,000.
Okay.
And also on the DJ side of things, there's certain things that come in packages. So with us, we tend to include a lot of things just because, again, it goes back to, we want the bride and groom to have the most exciting and memorable wedding day. But other DJs I know separate things out and charge extra per. So perfect example is the rehearsal the day before. A lot of times a DJ either won't show up at all for that, or they'll charge extra for that. And we always just include it in ours. The other thing is the ceremony. A lot of times DJs will charge extra to provide sound and music for the ceremony. We usually tend to include that in ours. And then announcements, like we were talking about earlier. Some DJs, they expect another person to be the MC and that they're only going to do the music. So.
Yeah. And kind of following that, I personally feel like a lot of times people don't understand the full realm of what a DJ does. So a lot of that is just people thinking that you pick a song and you press play. But you don't pick a song and press play.
I will say there are DJs that absolutely do that. And we've been to a few weddings where that was the case. And not trying to knock any of that because, ultimately some people, that's what they want.
there a market for that? Do I need a new side hustle?
There is some people that just want simplicity. That's a little bit where my background comes in, because I've been DJing for so long and in so many different situations, from all the way from house parties to clubs to the radio, many different radio stations. Then I don't just play music, I mix music, and so it flows a lot better. But again, some people don't necessarily want that. But the good news with me, or at least if you're booking us, is that I have the option. So if you want to go full club, we can go there. Or if you want, just pushing play, I can do that too. Or if you want something in the middle, there's of course that. But weddings, and we've unfortunately seen the dark side of this, but weddings are different from clubs. And so sometimes people are like, well, he's great in the club, but that's not necessarily what you want at your wedding. It's just being professional, certain songs, certain things that you don't want breakup songs being played at your wedding. And somebody who only plays in the club might not even think about that. So little things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So day of the wedding, what is that day like for you guys?
Long, very, very long.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a 48-hour day in 24 hours.
I mean, obviously, when you're talking about the planning side, that's usually a lot before the wedding. But even as a DJ, there's a lot that goes in before the day of, and even the night before. I'm packing up all my equipment, because it's not just the equipment that you see, but being a professional means that you have backups in case things go wrong. So that means I have equipment for if something goes down, I'm able to put something else up. And hopefully, if I do it right, then you haven't even noticed that anything happened on that side of things.
Yeah. For the actual day, we usually start our morning around 5 a.m. That's us getting ready, getting out the door, getting the car packed. And then because a lot of times I'll bring decor too. So like I have a inventory of items that I keep so that my brides don't have to buy 30 vases and then figure out what they're going to do with them. So I have an inventory that I offer with my service as a free charge, or, no charge really, that I'll bring along. And also I just bring extra stuff because you just never know. There's always something that gets forgotten. So it's starts at 5 a.m. and we usually don't finish until about 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. depending on the venue and, the end time for them. But literally if a wedding ends at 11, we're not packed up. I don't have all the vendors out. I have to stay back and make sure that the venue has been taken care of. It hasn't been trashed. I'm there cleaning, sweeping, whatever it is that needs to be done. We won't get home until 2 a.m.
Wow. So it's a long day.
It's a very long day. Yeah. And, we're able to keep our prices down for our clientele. We really work on more of a budget friendly side of things. We really don't do the high end, if you will. Like we're not that kind of a company. We really try to be in a price range that anybody could afford us, because we take so much enjoyment out of doing the job itself that we don't raise our prices to where they probably should be. But we find so much more gratification out of helping the brides that really need this level of service, but maybe couldn't afford it in the normal realm.
A lot of it just circles back to how we started our business, which is we try to be what we needed when we had our wedding. And so that's kind of how we look at it. But ultimately, the wedding day, we know it's going to be a long day and we go into it that way.
Yeah, that sounds like something I would not do. to be blunt.
I mean, if we were going for, depending on who you're working with, they might have a venue that will do all the cleanup, and then it's not such a long day. Some day of planners specifically, they only do, the wedding. They get there at the ceremony time, maybe a little bit before, and at the end of, sometimes even before the reception is over, then they're already gone. And some DJs are very similar. If they're not doing the ceremony, they might show up, set up for reception, and as soon as their time is up, then they're packing their equipment, music off, packing up their equipment, they're out. So it just depends on who you're working with.
Yes. So when do you think that couples should plan to book their DJs and their coordinator?
As soon as possible. Coordinator as soon as possible, because like I said, they're going to help you with all your other vendors. They're going to help you with your checklist. They're going to help break your checklist down into small, manageable pieces, because a lot of times I'll get brides that are afraid to even just pick up the phone because they don't know where to start. And they see the checklist online and it's 100 items deep, and they just are so overwhelmed that they just don't do anything. And so I think when you know you're getting married, even if you don't have a date, find a coordinator who's going to be there for you. Obviously she or he is going to want to know a date because they got to put it on their calendar. But even to start with somebody, start looking for somebody that you mesh well with. Maybe it's not the first coordinator you call. I've had I wouldn't say plenty, but I've had a couple of brides where I just wasn't the right fit for them. And that's okay. I don't want to take on a wedding that you and I are not jiving. I don't see your vision or the other way around. And so you got to be with somebody you feel comfortable with. Your coordinator becomes your bestie during planning. They're the bestie that doesn't ever get tired of hearing about your wedding. Your girlfriends get tired of it. They're like, okay, we know you're getting married. Yeah, we get it. But your coordinator is the one that's like, tell me all about it, So that person really becomes your partner in all of this. And a lot of times it's the groom's saving grace, because he also doesn't have to be involved. They get a pass and they're like, okay, there's somebody else to kind of help her, talk her off the ledge. I have so many grooms that'll call me and go, she's freaking out. You need to just help her. And I'm like, okay, no problem. And that's where my relationship with both the bride and the groom becomes super important. But the answer to your question is as soon as possible.
And as far as the DJ goes, it's the same thing as far as soon as possible. But what is really important is the fact that the DJ might be booked that day already. So the sooner you can ask, then the better they can tell you if that date is open or not. And then also, I will often remind the bride and grooms to get me a playlist or a music list or music that they like, genres, as soon as possible too, because it takes time to make sure that the right stuff is curated for them.
Yeah. So, do couples need to pay a deposit for your services?
Yes.
Okay.
Typically what you're going to see in the industry is 50%. So in order for that date to be booked, you will have to put down a 50% deposit along with the contract. Once that deposit and contract are received, that date is then booked. So your date will not be given up. Then typically 15 days prior to the event, the full balance is due.
Okay. So these are 3 questions that we ask all of our guests. And every single time we ask our guests these questions, I am just so excited about it.
I can tell.
So each... Anyways, so I'll have each one of you guys... I don't know why I said each one, like there's 5 of you guys here. I'll have both of you guys give me your answers to these questions, okay? So the first one is, what would the title of your autobiography be, and why would it be that title?
Mine is easy, and I'm sure my wife will say it's cheesy, but
That rhymed. Also cheesy.
coincidence. It would be Anomaly. And that's just because that was my DJ name back in the day. But as a wedding DJ, I just go by my normal name.
What about you, Natassia?
So mine would probably be There's No Rest for the Wicked.
Oh, why is that?
Well, it's one of my favorite sayings, and it's probably because I get no rest. I'm constantly working. I have a full-time career on top of our business because I like to work, apparently. And so I'm always thinking about the next step. I'm always thinking about how much more can I do? How much more can I push this business? Where else can I go that I haven't already gone? What other businesses? So it's constant for me. I'm constantly looking for ways to build the empire.
The next one is, what 3 things couldn't you live without?
That's a good question. Music, specifically Janet Jackson and Jill Scott. So music would for sure be, I mean, that's really what brought us together. So music has always been a very big part of our life. Our dogs, or dogs in general. And probably you, Neal.
Well, I guess you basically just took my answers. Definitely music. It's been in my life, my whole life. So music, very important. And then, of course, my wife and our dogs. They've always been important part of us. So those would be the 3 things for sure.
The next question is, what are your tips for newly engaged couples? Anything. What are your tips just for newly engaged couples?
Well, from experience, I really believe in some sort of pre-marriage counseling. I think it was great for us. We've utilized that throughout. And so I think, not for the reasons that I think a lot of people think you need counseling prior to getting married. It's just to make sure you're on the same page, because it's kind of like having a coordinator. You don't know what you don't know. You've never been married. We lived together before we were married, and it was still an eye opener, because even when you're doing things like maybe a married couple would do, something changes when you walk down that aisle. And so there's just things that you don't think of before you're married. And having somebody to walk you through those challenges that you will inevitably face, financial, children, how you want to raise them, what are your goals, how are you going to communicate effectively with one another, it's going to help you while you're planning your wedding too. You've got to be on the same page in a lot of areas. All of those areas, financially, when you're making decisions, it's all of those things. So I think that would be one of mine. What would be yours?
I would say honesty, trust, and communication. Communication is so important, because a lot of times you think that your partner might know what you're trying to say or what you're going through, and they might not have any idea that you're going through a certain situation. So being able to communicate and be able to trust that your partner is going to be there to support you is important. And even looking at a wedding, it's a pressure cooker of sorts, because there is just so much going into one day. And I guess to spin it kind of back to us, it's just having professionals gives you the confidence in knowing that that one day is going to work the way that it should work. Because there are some couples out there that had weddings that they don't get to go back and do over.
And I really love that you guys talked more about that side of it, because I feel like a lot of the conversations we've been having about that one, you can really take that any kind of way. You can go anywhere with that. But I think, you need a good foundation to get through
anything. Yeah. Whether it's small or it's big, you have to have that foundation to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, you think you have that foundation. Like you were saying, you guys lived together. You guys were together for a while.
We were together for 7 years prior to getting married.
Yeah.
We've been together 17 years. So we thought we knew everything. We already had our finances together. We're already living together. We already, had a household. We already had fur children, we had all of those things. So we thought, it's not going to change. It changed drastically. I mean, obviously owning a business is part of that, but there's just things that you didn't realize, even I wouldn't say gender roles, but roles in a relationship that you didn't realize were part of you until you get married, and that kind of changes, and what you expect out of the other person kind of changes. It shifts a little bit. And so, it's important for us. And the reason why we picked those things, I think, is we get a special privilege being in the position that we are with doing weddings. It's one, I think, of the major reasons why we enjoy doing weddings more than anything. We get a snapshot of the happiest day of two people's lives, and more than just two people. You've got families and all of the, these different personalities that everyone is happy. It's that moment where they are in love the most. It's the climax of that happiness and love between two people, and we get to experience that. And so we're really invested in those relationships. We want the best for our couples, not because we want to be the business that they hire, because we truly enjoy watching that love, being a part of that love, because it also reminds us of our love.
And kind of going off of that, I think it would be really hard for us to pick one wedding that was most memorable, just because we've had so many memorable moments in so many different weddings.
Yeah, even if the wedding maybe wasn't our favorite wedding overall, there were things that maybe the venue wasn't great or whatnot, it doesn't take away from that. So because of that one string, that kind of that thread that binds them all together, they're all our favorites.
Wow, that was so sweet. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on today. It was super fun chatting with you guys.
It was fun, yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, definitely informative. I will start to plan my wedding now. I will also plan how I'm going to meet my husband, because it hasn't happened yet. But
we'll try to keep the date open.
Keep the date open. I'm thinking maybe 10 years. I don't know what your schedules are going to look like.
It's wide open for 10 years from now.
You're doing soft booking for 10 years, so
we're going to need a deposit, though.
I can 50%. Give you half of 1%.
We'll take it.
So, where can the people find you?
So the easiest place would be our website, trinityevents.pro, Pro.
We, of course, also have social media. So you can find us on Instagram or Facebook. But like he said, the website ties all of those things together. So if you go to the website, you'll find our social media right there too. But also what's cool about, and we have YouTube, where all of our videos, we do videos at the end of every event, where we, get a little snapshot from the bride and groom of what they felt, both with our job, what we've done for them, and overall for their day. So those are always fun because typically they're drunk and it's exciting to watch. But also just because, like I said, you get that moment where you're like, your heart is just so full for them because you know that it's just the beginning of a new chapter for them. So the website has all of that stuff. So it's kind of the best place to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much again. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also find us on social media at Amie Bridal Salon, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, TikTok, YouTube. I think I got them all. Yes, at Amie Bridal Salon on virtually any social media that you can think of. That's where we're at. So until the next one, we will talk to you guys next Friday.